Hi, and welcome back to this week's Parsha Shir. As you know, last week we began a new series, a new year of Shiurim, not learning anymore from Sefer Nesiva Shalom, which we learned for an entire year, but now moving on to another Sefer Maayan Beit Hashovea by Rav Shimon Schwab, who was the rabbi of Chayei, the Breuer's community in Washington Heights, and an important figure in American Jewish history. We started last week with his shir on Parshat Vayera, and we'll continue this week in Chayei Sara. I'd like to share with you two little snippets of what he shares on the Parsha. In this Parsha, after Eliezer goes to find a wife for Yitzchak, he recounts to Lavan and Besuel the entire story of how he got there, and what he did, and how he met Rivka at the well. And the end result of that entire story is Vayan Lavan uBesuel Vayomru Me'Hashem Yatza Davar Lo Nuchal Daber Elecha Ra Otov. Lavan and Besuel answer Eliezer, and they say, from God this event came to be. They realize this was an event ordained by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore, Lo nuchal daber elecha ra otov. We can't speak about it good, can't speak bad about it, we have nothing to say, can't say anything about it, it is from Hashem. And therefore, Hine Rivka lefanecha kach valech. So, here is Rivka, you could take her, you could go, clearly this is divinely ordained, and we can't stand in your way. And she shall be the wife of your master's son, namely Yitzchak, just as Hashem has spoken. Those are the words of Lavan and Besuel. So the Rav Schwab has a number of questions on this pasuk. He says, first of all, Lamdu Chazal in the Gemara in Moed Katan, learn from this pasuk, Mehashem Yatza Hadavar. When Lavan and Besuel say this event came about from Hashem, we learn Mehashem Isha Leish. What they are really saying, and what is true in general beyond this one particular story, is that it's from Hashem how zivugim, how basherts, as matches are made. Ish Leisha is designated already by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In this case in specific, of course, Ish Ve'isha, Yitzchak and Rivka are designated for each other. And he says here, a number of questions. Yesh lahavin ech lamdu midivrei Lavan uBesuel harishayim. Number one, how do we learn this principle from the words of Rishayim? Just because Lavan and Besuel seem to claim Ma'ashem Yatza Davar, it's a beautiful thought, it's one we agree with, but if they've established this principle, how do we then take that as our guiding principle that is mentioned in the Gemara in Moed Katan? We learn that from the mouths of Rishayim. Furthermore, V'nira Shine Yesh L'Ayin Ba'Pasuk Shesiyamu. We can also look at the next pasuk, where it says Lo Nuchal Daber, the rest of the pasuk, where it says Lo Nuchal Daber Elecha Ra Otov. So we could ask a question on that half of the pasuk too, not just on Mehashem Yatza Davar. Haloim ki divrayim shema'ashem Yatza Davar lama lo yuchlu lomar tov. Instinctively, the pasuk makes sense. What they're really saying is, this is from God, we can't say good or bad, we can't say anything about it. If you think about the words more carefully, how could they claim Hashem Yatza Davar on the one hand, that this is ordained by God, and therefore, Lo Nuchal Daber Ra Otov. Lo Nuchal Daber Ra, we can't say anything bad against it. Well, we recognize you can't do that because it came from God. But why Otov? Why can't they say something good? They can't claim this is good. If they know it comes from God, why couldn't they say, Tov, then yes, it's good. May not be what we wanted, may not be what we imagined, but it's from God, and therefore it's good. Right? So that phrase doesn't make sense. Lo nuchal daber ra otov. We can't say good or bad. No, you can't say bad, because it comes from God. But you could say good, it comes from God. So why is that not a possibility? V'tzarich lomar. Perhaps this is the way to parse the pasuk, says Rav Schwab. They really wanted to prevent Rivka from going and marrying Yitzchak. Ela shesama Kadosh Baruch Hu davar bepihem upashu ve'anu bli ritzonam me'Hashem yatza davar. But maybe God put words literally in their mouth, like the way we have with Bilam. Other stories in the Torah. Hashem literally prevents them from saying what they wanted to say, which is she shouldn't go. He opens their mouth, and God's words emerge from their mouth, and the words God put in their mouth is Ma'ashem Yatza Davar. This came from God, this is preordained, Ish Leisha, man to wife, wife to husband. Yitzchak and Rivka are meant to be with each other. However, the rest of the pasuk, V'siyimu heim me'atzmam b'kavanasam ha'amitis, shelo yuchlu davar daber tov. But then, the words of God cease in their mouth, and then the truth of what they're thinking, the truth of their mouth comes out. Mashem yatsa davar, that's what God put in their mouth. This is divinely ordained. Then they get their voice back, and they say, Lo nuchal daber ra otov. We can't say this is bad, because it comes from God. We can't prevent it from happening, but lo nuchal daber tov. We also can't say it's good, because we don't agree with it. We don't want her to go. So even though it comes from God, we ourselves, from our opinion, can't say tov. That's the only way to read the pasuk where lo nuchal daber lecha ra tov actually makes sense. If they're speaking of that on their own, and that they were forced to say Hashem Yatsa instead of them saying it of their own volition. If that's true, we understand a few more things about the following psukim as well. V'yuvan bazeh amram. We can also understand what they say next. Hine Rivka kach valech v'atehi isha leven adonecha kasher diber Hashem. In the next pasuk, they say, "Here's Rivka, take her and go," as we read before. Take her so she could marry the son of your master, just like God spoke. Kasher diber Hashem. Asher lichora kasha echan diber Hashem. So we could have asked, before we had this shot in the previous pasuk, we could have asked, where did we see that God actually spoke and said that Rivka was supposed to marry Yitzchak? We don't see that anywhere in the story. We see Eliezer trying to recount how everything was bashert, and he saw Rivka at the well, etc. But we never have the words of God coming and saying that this is the match that's correct. But now, with our understanding of the previous pasuk, where the words Ma'ashem Yatzah Davar, that this is all divinely ordained, was the words of God put in the mouths of Lavan and Bethuel. So now we understand why Lavan and Bethuel say that, okay, so take her and go let her marry Yitzchak, kasher diber Hashem, as God spoke, because God did speak. He spoke through them as their mouthpiece. So now we understand the second pasuk. And lastly, we can understand something else as well. Lahalan, later on, we have Vayivarchu es Rivka vayomru la achosenu as ha'ila alfei ravava vayiris darech ashar sonav. We have the pasuk where they give her the bracha before she leaves, that you, our sister, should be as multiplous as the myriads of the world, and that your progeny should inherit all of their enemies. They should be successful and multiplous long into the future. So Rashi quickly notes on that pasuk, based on the Medrash, that the language that they give of their bracha to Rivka is remarkably similar to the language that Hashem uses in his bracha to Avram Avinu after Akedas Yitzchak. So perhaps, says Rashi and the Medrash, what they were saying to her is they're giving a bracha, not only should you have many progeny, but your progeny should be the ones that were promised to Abraham, namely that your marriage to Yitzchak should allow you to be the forebear of the line that was promised to Abraham, the eternal line of the Jewish people. So now Rosh Schwab says, if it's true that Hashem put words in Lavan and Bethuel's mouth, and then they, in the next pasuk, refer back to a kasher diber Hashem, just as Hashem put the words in our mouth, now makes full sense why when they give her the bracha before she leaves, they can quote the bracha to Avram Avinu, because after all, Ech yadu bracha zo. How would they know that bracha? Ela shegam bazehu sam b'piem ke'ein nuvuah me'akadosh baruch hu. Once Hashem was putting words in their mouth, he put those words, the appropriate bracha, to match the bracha of Avraham, so that it wasn't them who wouldn't have even known the bracha to Avraham, who were saying to Rivka, your progeny should be part of that line, but Hashem made their words come out of their mouth in a way that matched the bracha to Avraham, to show that really Rivka's marriage to Yitzchak is bashert, is correct, so correct, that it will be the line through which Avram's progeny continues. So that's how he parses all these psukim, making all these different questions make sense. Another piece, short piece here by Rosh Schwab. Later in the Parsha, we read about the death of Avram Avinu. And it says in the pasuk, Vayikberu so Yitzchak v'Yishmael banav al Maras HaMachpelah. Yitzchak and Ishmael both bury their father in Maras HaMachpelah. And Rashi, quoting the Gemara in Baba Basra, says, Mikan she'asa Yishmael tshuva, v'holich as Yitzchak lefanav, v'hi seva tova shenamar b'Avram. That we see from this pasuk, from the fact that Ishmael showed up at the funeral of Avram Avinu, we must learn that Ishmael did tshuva and eventually came back to the house of Avraham. And the fact that he did that is why the Torah says that Avram died b'seva tova. He died with a ripe, beautiful old age. He died in peace, knowing that his son Yishmael had done tshuva and had come back. So Rav Schwab says, Tzarech bir. Lama lanu lahavi raya mikan besof yamim shel Avram she'asa Yishmael tshuva. Why do we have to bring a pasuk from here, from the end of Avram's life, actually after he's already dead, from his funeral, to prove that Yishmael did tshuva? We have another proof much, much earlier that Yishmael had done tshuva. Already 38 years earlier, during the experience of the Akedah, the pasuk says in Parshat Vayera, "Vayikach es shnei na'arav ito." He brought his two boys with him. Upirshu Chazal, and Chazal, brought by Rashi, say on that pasuk that the two Na'arim were Yishmael and Eliezer. So Chazal already believed that we saw in the pasuk of Shnei Na'arim by the Akedah that Yishmael had done tshuva and was now part of the experience of the Akedah to return to Avram's home. Hareshaz kvar chazar Yishmael lebeis Avram. V'akorchash kvar asa tshuva. If he returned to the house of Avram and he was participating in the Akedah, clearly he had already done tshuva. So while it's not pshat in either, it's not pshat in the pasuk. Chazal certainly believed that pasuk indicated Yishmael did tshuva long ago. So why do Chazal now come on our pasuk at the end of Avram's life and say, "Oh, whoa, you see Yishmael at the funeral, he must have done tshuva"? What do you mean? You knew that earlier. You already read that earlier into the psukim into the pasuk of Shnei Na'arav with the two lads. V'yesh lomar she'yam makom lachshosh shema shenag Yishmael kishurach asher chazal lebeis Avram. Hayarak lichvodo shel aviv al miyad kshiyamus avi yachzor l'darachav haraim. Beautiful idea. He says, if all you had was the first pasuk, that Yishmael came back to the house of Abraham, did tshuva, and participated in the Akedah, you might have claimed that his tshuva was less than perfect. His tshuva was slightly insincere. Perhaps he only did tshuva out of respect to his father. That's already a great level. It's an amazing thing that he respected his father. Even more amazing that he respected him enough to actually do tshuva and engage in that process. But maybe he wasn't so altruistic. Maybe it wasn't really l'shem shemaim, totally for the sake of God, totally because it was ingrained in him. Maybe he had ulterior motives, albeit good ones. The ulterior motive of giving kavod to his father, of giving nachas ruach to his father, of allowing Avram to live his life knowing that Yishmael was a good boy, he had done tshuva, and he'd come back, and he had followed in the right ways. But maybe he didn't really believe it himself, and that after Avram died, he would give the whole thing up. And we see that in our world today too. Out of respect for parents, children will sometimes maintain a certain level of religiosity. Once the parents are gone, they go off and they do their own thing. But now, with the second example here, the fact that Yishmael shows up at the funeral of Avraham, we see that even after his lifetime, he remains part of that household. He remains connected to Yitzchak. He remains connected to Avram. That he maintained the tshuva even after Avram died, showing that his tshuva was indeed sincere. And afilu achrei ptiras aviv mikan roin shebe'emes asa tshuva. Here we see that he truly did tshuva. He says furthermore, v'nira yoser nira lomar. We could say even further. Sharei al-chacha mikan she'asa tshuva hi mimashi hayayachol Yishmael aleches Lifnei Yitzchak b'shas kfuras Avram. It's not only that he showed up at the funeral and he's still part of the household, but that the pasuk says Vayikbaroso Yitzchak v'Yishmael banav. Yitzchak comes before Yishmael in the pasuk, even though Yishmael is the older brother, and in theory he should have come first in the pasuk. He should have come first in the funeral procession. Nonetheless, the Torah tells us that Yitzchak came first, namely, according to Rav Schwab, that Yishmael let Yitzchak go first. Sharei gadol mimenu b'shamim v'im kozeh machmas an v'tanutzo amar lo Yitzchak she'elech lefanav. Because of his humility, even though he was the older brother, he let Yitzchak go first. Sheyoser roi mimenu v'gam yarbe kavod aviv al yedei zeh. He knew that Yitzchak was a more worthy person, that Yitzchak going first as the prime religious brother would be a greater kavod to their father. And the fact that he did that, Zehu Siman Hamuvhak Shel Bal Tshuva Ha'amisi. This is the true sign of a true Bal Tshuva. Shemisnaheg behachna va'anava umekir shifluso. A person who acts with humility, who knows their station, who knows how to submit when they have to submit, who understands that they're on a great pathway, that they may be trying hard, but that there are others that are greater than them. The humility to look at others that way, the humility of Yishmael to look at Yitzchak that way, is indicative of not just a surface tshuva, but a tshuva that runs truly deep, a tshuva that we should all strive for, perhaps in our own lives as well. Shabbat Shalom.